How much quicker are carbon plated shoes? Today I'll be putting a daily trainer up against a carbon plated shoe and a barefoot shoe. Let's see how good they really are. Hi, I'm Manny and welcome to the channel. Now, most people race in super shoes, or at least have an idea of what super shoes are. I certainly do, and I feel like I'm much faster in them. But how much faster do they make me? Now, I have done tests previously, super shoes versus other super shoes, but I haven't really looked at them versus a daily trainer and also a barefoot shoe. So today I'll be looking at those things. This is only a bit of fun. It is hardly scientific. I'm going to try and make it as fair as possible, but I know that when I'm extrapolating out from mile repeats or whatever, that it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it will give me a good idea and hopefully give you a good idea of what benefits they actually get for me. And actually, it is based on me. So I've got a certain running style, so this may not have the same impact on other people. It is just me, but I still think it'll be quite an interesting thing to see. So for the test, I've got a 1 mile loop. It's very close to my house that I can do that enables me to do the loop, go in, change my shoes, and then come back out within a couple of minutes just to make sure that it's as fair as possible. So the shoes that I'll be testing will be, for the daily trainer, it'll be the Saucony Endorphin Azura. For that carbon plated, it'll be the Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite 3. And for the barefoot shoe, I'm using the Vivobarefoot Primus Flow. Now, it's quite interesting looking at the weights there. Obviously, the Saucony is not really heavy by any means, but it is obviously considerably heavier than the Puma Fast-R. But I was really surprised to see how similar the Fast-R and the Vivo Barefoot were. I'll discuss that a little bit further during the test. So I'll be doing mile repeats with a 3-minute little jog home to change my shoes. And the order I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the Saucony first, then the Puma, then the Vivo Barefoot, then the Puma again, Vivo Barefoot again, and finishing off with the Saucony, using the Saucony as a sort of control. I'm also going to be doing about a 2 mile warm up before this to try and get my heart rate up a little bit so it's as fair as it can be. You're never going to get things exactly right, but I'm going to try and do the best I can. So this loop that I'm doing is about as flat as you're going to get in the Brecon Beacons, but it is not completely flat, and there is a little patch that just goes uphill that just spikes the heart rate a little bit towards the end. So it's not something that you try really hard on, but at the same time it will just spike your heart rate a little bit. Basically, the first half of it is slightly downhill, then it's slightly uphill. I'll be doing this test based on heart rate. So I've picked my heart rate based on my rough marathon effort. Any of you know my previous videos or know me know that I do a lot of heart rate work, and I do a lot of work based on effort rather than pace. So the pace is pretty irrelevant because I want to make sure I get the most out of my sessions. So I want my heart rate in the zone it's supposed to be in. So for me, my marathon heart rate at the start of a marathon is high 140s, low 150s. So that's where I want to be. So I want to be around the 150 mark for each shoe, and won't be looking at pace. We'll literally just be looking at my heart rate. So for each lap and for each shoe, I'll be looking at the average pace in kilometers and mile. I'll be looking at my average heart rate. I'll be looking at my maximum heart rate, my cadence, and also my stride length. Now, the average heart rate won't quite be as high because obviously I'm starting from scratch every time. I'm having a rest and then I'm starting again. So the average heart rate for the mile won't be as high as it's supposed to be, but obviously I get it up to around the 150 mark and then try and keep it there. So we're just coming up to the bit here where we have been going just ever so slightly uphill, and then we will get to the point at the end of this river path that goes, it's like quite a steep, you can't really see it here, but it is quite steep, so you have to work a little bit going up there, then around this corner, across the road. We're getting lucky because it's nice and early in the morning, and then there we go, off we back onto something semblance of flat ground again. So that's the only bit that will spike the heart rate. So we come to the end of the mile here, and we stop, jog home, and change the shoes. If you are enjoying this video and do like my content in general, please remember to like and subscribe. It does really help. Thanks a lot. On with the video. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a mix-up with my camera and didn't actually put it on my head for the first repeat that I did. I went to press the button and it wasn't there, so I just cracked on anyway, because I messed up a couple of things with my watch, so I just had enough. So I just thought, right, let's just crack on and make sure I get it there with the Pumas. So we're actually watching the start of the Pumas. So I've gone off relatively quickly as per normal. but these shoes are something you have to kind of settle into, because they do make me want to run quickly, but I just need to settle into it and just get my heart rate under control, which is what I did here. Here's a little bit of information about the shoes. So first we've got the trusty Endorphin Azura, my go-to daily trainer at the moment. No carbon plate, so it does bend quite well. Decent amount of cushioning. Have done a few shoe review on this, so please have a look at that if you want to. For the carbon plate, no surprise at what I'll be using here. Absolutely love the Puma Fast-R Nitro 3. Do all my racing in it, so anything from 5k to a marathon, I've used this. I just find it brilliant and it works really well for me. So really lightweight, decent grip, but it is obviously a lot stiffer, so I'm not going to push it too hard. I don't want to snap the plate, but you can really feel that plate in there. And then we've got the Vivobarefoot Primus Flow. So this is a very lightweight shoe. Obviously can bend completely, twist all over the place. Now it is made for running, so it has got a decent tread on the bottom, and it does protect your feet a little bit more. I have got another pair of these that have less tread, and you can feel the ground a little bit more through them, but these are good ones to go with for the running. Now I have not just gone straight into doing this. I've heard some pretty horrendous reports of people just going straight into running in barefoot shoes and getting themselves injured. It's now August, and I've been using a barefoot shoe for my just general daily use, and then the last few weeks I've been running a couple of miles here and there in them, or a few kilometers here and there. So I felt comfortable in, I was only doing 2 miles total in them, but it was at a faster pace than I'd done. So I just wanted to be careful, because although I like doing these videos, the main thing is that I want to get faster at running. So injuring myself doing something silly is not really something I want to do. Here we are with the barefoot shoes then. Now, as you can probably see there, so I've just started off, I am already going a little bit slower than I was in the Pumas. Now that is to be expected. What I did feel, they did feel very different, but they did feel about the same in terms of how light they were. They felt very similar, so I can obviously feel the floor through them a lot more, and I didn't get the same amount of propulsion forward or spring, but I did feel quite comfortable running in. I was really surprised about how I was able to just skip along quite nicely. I mean, I had no idea how fast I was going, but I was skipping along just under 4 minutes per kilometre, absolutely no problem at all. So that was really surprising for me, because I was expecting to be quite a big difference. And I was managing to keep my heart rate under control. We'll see what it means for the cadence and the stride length and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it didn't feel as different as I thought it would. Again, as you can see there from the pace, I'm going a little bit more slowly, but not in the amount that I thought I would have been. So yeah, a bit surprised in that respect. And again, there's another comparison with the Saucony I found really interesting that we'll come to when we look at the results. Like I said, I could definitely feel that I was running barefoot, or I was running in something much more minimalist, but it didn't feel as bad as I thought it was going to do. So finally then, looking at the Saucony, this is the last one I did in them. It's quite interesting, because changing between the two lighter shoes, I couldn't really feel that much of a difference. So I could obviously, there's a lot more stack or a lot more propulsion with the Puma, but in terms of them being on my feet, they just felt nice and light and like I wanted to run. So it was quite interesting then putting a Saucony on, which were, again, for a daily trainer, they're not that heavy, but they were significantly heavier than the other two shoes, and I could really feel that. And I could also feel the stack height a lot more. Again, even though it's not a huge amount different from the Puma, I could just really feel it. It just felt like I was miles off the floor. It was a really strange sensation, because I run in these every day and I don't feel that at all. Just really interesting, but obviously I'm comparing things at two completely different ends of the spectrum that are designed to do different things for your running. Once I get used to the Saucony again, I'm back into a rhythm. They roll nicely onto the forefoot. What I'd say is they're a lot more forgiving than the other two shoes, because the other two you do have to put your foot in the right position, or you do not feel very good at all. So you can be a bit almost lazier. So if you're going on an easy run or something, the Saucony would be a hell of a lot easier to maintain when you're not perhaps got the best form. Here we go with the results then. So I put this all into my Garmin, into the Connect app, to see what the results were. So first of all, the Saucony, average pace of 3:58 per kilometre. And the Puma's at 348, so I'd expect a fairly big difference there, but that is quite big. 401 for the barefoot. Now, that isn't a million miles away from the Saucony, which I found quite interesting. Then the Puma's back down to 350, again, pretty good. Then back to the barefoot again, 404. Again, it's a little bit slower than the first one, but still pretty good. And then the Saucony at the 403. Now, that's the one I found really interesting, because about the 4 or 5 mile point is when I've kind of settled down in the marathon, and where, you know, my heart rate won't particularly be drifting that much until a bit later on in the race. So having a similar time to the barefoot really shocked me, because I expected it to be a little bit quicker, you know, to get the energy return on the foam and that kind of thing, but not the case. Maybe it's something to do with my cadence, maybe it's something to do with the way I'm running, maybe I'm more efficient in the barefoot, but yeah, really interesting. Now, if we look across, you know, as you can see, the heart rates are all there or thereabouts. Cadence, very similar, but again, in the barefoot, it's slightly higher in the one, but very similar to the Puma again, with the Saucony have a noticeably lower cadence, maybe because of the spring in a step, or maybe just because I'm not running as efficiently as I could be. So it is something to think about for me. And again, with the stride length, you'd expect it to be longer if I'm going faster and that kind of thing. So yeah, very interesting. So I thought it might be quite interesting to have a look at what this would mean for marathon times. Now, I'm well aware that this is not accurate at all, because there's a lot more that comes into a marathon time than just merely how quickly you can do 1 mile on tired legs. So I'm well aware that getting further into the marathon, the extra foam will make a huge difference to how much you can maintain your speed. But it's just interesting to have a look at anyway. So standout is obviously the Puma, which is 240 at marathon effort, which is for me quite nice, because that's kind of what I was targeting around London next year. So possibly might be looking to go a little bit faster than that. And then the barefoot being at the 251.36 again. That, you know, I wouldn't have thought I'd be able to run that in the barefoot, but at that pace, that's what it kind of equates to, which is quite good. And then the Saucony with a what we got the two, so we got one at the 247 and one at 250. So again, not a million miles away from the barefoot, which again that is a surprise for me. So there we have it. Over the marathon distance, it's a kind of 8 or 9 minute difference between the super shoe, with carbon plated super shoe, and the Saucony, with the Vivobarefoot just a little bit further behind, so about 10 minutes or so. So that does make me think a little bit about some of the goals we have in running these days. Now, the 3-hour marathon is the holy grail to a lot of people, and that, it is a really fast time. But with these super shoes, is 3 hours really what it used to be? I'm not so sure. I actually think probably 250 is probably the new 3 hours. So people who are getting 3 hours before super shoes would probably be getting closer to 250 now, if the super shoes work for them in the same way as they work for me. Again, I'm not saying it works exactly the same way for everyone, but it's something to think about. And also with the super foams, you're finding that you're able to train more and recover more quickly, which means you can do more training. So there's a lot of benefits we have at the moment that people didn't have previously. Just makes some of those marathon performances in yesteryear seem even more amazing. And by yesteryear, I don't mean the 60s, 50s, 60s, whatever. I mean 10 years ago. It's crazy how quickly technology moves on. And also a little bit on the barefoot shoes. Will I be using them a little bit more? Probably not, because although I did feel I ran quite well in them, I could feel my legs a little bit the next day, even over running just a couple of miles a bit faster. So it's something that I will use in my training occasionally, just to look at the form, maybe use them on the treadmill sometimes. But because I'm going to start building the mileage up soon for marathon training, I need that cushion in my shoes just to keep my legs nice and recovered and enable me to train a bit more. That's it from me then. Hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.